Кто-то пропердел мимо дома. Сработали все сигнализации. Класс. Так, а на чем это остановился? То, что день рабочий закончился, и мы пошли спать. Где там такое? Ну-ка. Это за ширмой. Давай. Спать. Надо спать. Или не надо спать?
This is the door to the room you redecorated.
Спокойной ночи, лейтенант.
You had some questions earlier, I believe. And besides, we should discuss our progress on the investigation.
Да,
Let's
точно.
go out to the balcony.
Погнали, погнали.
The air outside is brisk. The lieutenant is silent for a moment. He listens to the traffic hum. Then,
Where shall we begin? We should talk about the investigation, first and foremost. But I also remember you wanting to discuss the RCM? I have a cigarette every night when I go over my notes. It's something of a ritual.
oh man, he looks so devastatingly cool with that cigarette.
You mean this? This isn't cool. It's an unnecessary trial of will and unhealthy.
Yet, were he to quit, he would lose the cool factor.
А еще громче музыку можно? Я, сука, не слышу нихуя. Не, громкость голоса, пусть будет так, да. Просто такого хера.
Yes, it's been a long and eventful day. Well, we inspected the victim's body, so that's good. It was not easily approachable in that state, but we did it.
Ну да, только тело до сих пор, блин, на заднем дворе валяется. А так, да, мы прям молодцы.
I would say our initial inspection was very thorough, and we have solid leads to follow up on. Then you shot the body down, which was quite the shot. I admit I wasn't sure whether I should give you the gun, but I'm glad I did. We still have to perform the autopsy though. But we did do a thorough search of the crime scene. That's great. Now, as for interviews, my list of people to talk to here in Martinez, I mean. Not always the right people, I'm afraid. We weren't able to find the union leader, Everard Clare, much less interview him, so that's on the to-do list for tomorrow. We didn't talk to the Wild Pines rep. We really must do that tomorrow. Above all, though, today was exhausting. What's with all the running? You run a lot. Is that a standard Precinct 41 practice? It's impressive, especially for a man your age. And in those hills. Nice shoes, by the way. I like the green. Goes with the orange. They're quite limited, actually. The power officers of the Revachol Citizens Militia exercise most frequently is imposing fines of up to 1,000 real for offenses, in accordance with an interdepartmental schedule. Yes, although indirectly, as citizens can always request records from their local station. Officers of the RCM have been known to take bribes of less than the prescribed fine amount. It undermines trust in the RCM. The RCM's primary role is to ensure safety. We are not really supposed to play any part in the economic structure of Revachol. We can arrest people, of course, but rather than bringing someone in directly, it's preferable to serve a station cold sleep. It prevents confusion and overcrowding. You can't. Those who don't show up become fugitives, though, and have fewer legal rights when they are eventually caught. It's about power projection. Thus far, they seem to mostly show up. As you may have gathered from the fact that we are expected to carry a record of our kills, like the one in your watermarks, we are permitted to use whatever force is necessary, and strongly admonished not to abuse that power. You have to supply compelling evidence for why it was necessary to use lethal force. In these cases, your partner is usually your witness. Not a good position to be in, by the way. Internal Affairs handles these cases thoroughly, by cross-examining you for inconsistencies. It is hard to cover for anyone, which is for the best. We don't convict. We arrest and send them to coalition government courts in Couron and La Delta. The prosecution works off our testimonies and records, which is why it's paramount to keep them. The coalition government, and the moral intern more broadly. The RCM was formed by the coalition government to restore order in the international...
Пиздец, сколько информации на тебя выбрасывают.
So we did.
Вроде
Now
бы
we
здесь
attempt
так,
to maintain that order. No more, no less.
так густо намешано лора всякого, то есть проработано. Тут вымышленная страна со своими какими-то законами, порядками, там, историей, городами, какими-то организациями и так далее. Блядь, и тебе все это так обильно в тебя вываливают. Мне кажется, тут при всем желании ты не запомнишь и половины из того, что тебе говорят.
Or perhaps it is better to say we were
Да и
allowed
нужно ли
to
это
form.
запоминать?
It's a point of contention whether the citizens of Revachol or the coalition government founded the RCM. Be sentimental if you like. Either way, the moral intern leases us the right to keep the peace in this city, and they will take it away if we misuse it.
Or if they think you do.
The Moralist International are the world's largest political organization. You know who they are. They have been running this place after the revolution failed. They're a union of center-left and center-right parties across the Real Belt. Our coalition government is just one of its many projects. They also run the ICP, EPIS, most intergovernmental organizations in the world. What do they believe in? They are Dolorians. They believe they continue the humanist project set forth by Her Innocence Dolores Day 4 centuries ago. Others say they are just technocrats.
Those others say they continue the humanist project set forth by Dolores Day.
Interesting question. It's a blue forget-me-not. Their motto is love, compassion, self-discipline. I think you can gauge what they want you to think of them from that.
Something kind and usual. Something almost self-explanatory. Something like the dark blue, serious color of the early night sky above.
A historic figure? The author of the modern age? You will have to look elsewhere for opinions. The subject of humanism is too abstract for me. The moral intern are a fact. I try not to have opinions on facts until they change. And it doesn't look like that's about to happen. Do you?
Тихо пробормотать эти мигранты, какие-то ебанутые мужики, которые превращаются в баб.
No. We are stooges of the world's biggest bourgeois organization, protecting the people of Revachol. That's the hand we were dealt. Without the MI, we would be common vigilantes.
Ну, как бы не совсем то. У нас просто написали вигилантами, но он сказал vigilantис, но это как бы эти. Типа как эти. Как бандиты. Или за кого награду назначили. Вигиланты — это плохо, но я бы не сказал.
Then you will adore Martinez. For many of these people, the Union especially, vigilantes is precisely what we are. Personally, I don't enjoy it much.
The dying lights of the city shimmer below. Slowly, like luminous clouds, they pass on his lenses. The lieutenant looks at his slim cigarette, contemplating the next drag.
Мы так всю ночь простоим.
An aerostatic passes overhead, the whiskers of its floodlights on the ground below. Kitsurag's glasses light up as he looks to the sky. Two glowing circles.
They really don't like us here. The Union, the teenagers too. It's different in land. In Jamrock and the GRIH. It's our fault for leaving this place to the dogs, to the Union, to the company, not daring to come here more often. This place has fallen between the cracks, the jurisdictions of our two precincts. We run this city. West of the river is RCM land. It's incredibly hard. Human beings are... But we are in control, and it's worth it. The organization works, our systems work. If they didn't, the city would disintegrate. Me too. But I wouldn't count on any drastic changes in our lifetimes.
He is very tired, but the dark circles under his eyes make him look younger, not...
Yeah, it's getting very cold now. Let's go.
Hey, psst,
Я?
yes, you. Word on the street is you're ready to start building communism again. You keep saying things like, down with the bourgeoisie, eat the rich, sodomize the landowners.
Пенетрируй землевладельцев, я такого не говорил.
Real in their pocket. Literally murder all human beings, regardless of their political beliefs. That kind of stuff. Oh yes, the mask of ambivalence. Don't deny it. You're about to rip it off and reveal the monstrous seven-eyed lamb of global communism that would devour and masticate mankind. Everyone can see that. So tell me, do you have any questions before we fire? Failure. It's about failure. Yes, abject failure. Total, irreversible defeat on all fronts. Absolutely vanquished, beaten, curb-stomped and pissed on. Until you came along. You will reverse the fortune of the workers of the world. You alone, against every living thing, against every human alive. 800 trillion real in the hands of an impossibly well-organized ruling class. Towering city blocks of bankmen who have the ears of prime ministers. Million-headed armies of nations and the love of your own mother. You against the atom, the charm and the spin, where the whole world failed. Matter failed to bend to human will. Human will failed to get out of bed and tie its laces. You alone, single-handedly, will rebuild the dreams of the working class.
Надеюсь, этому
You are the
мужику на
last
озвучке
communist.
очень хорошо заплатили, с учетом, сколько текста ему пришлось начитывать. Причем отыгрывая разные эти ипостасии какие-то внутреннего этого голоса.
Now get to work, comrade. Oh yeah, get the firing squads and the animal wagons. Too late to back out now. You can't.
Ну-ка, что там? Социально-экономический -2 визуальный анализ. Спасибо, нет. Очень выгодная сделка. Это пока пригодится.
Yes?
А, вот кто в этом номере тусуется. А погоди-ка, погоди-ка, может быть я смогу гримасу убрать наконец.
A mirror hangs on the bathroom wall. It's barely covered in steam anymore. It's your face in the mirror, adorned with the expression.
Электрохимия, да? Электрохимия. Что-нибудь из этого мне... О! Добавляет электрохимии. Это просто стоит денег, да?
The pockets of these new jeans are perfect for sticking your hand into. Makes you look cool, calm, and collected. As your hand enters the pocket, your fingers brush against something soft yet crinkly. Hey, it's a chewing gum wrapper. It reminds you of the fruity juice of apricots. You should inspect it closer if you have time. Something, by the way, the raw materials were most likely exported from Seaguy, the apricot suzerainty, and processed in Sur-le-Clay into the apricot-flavored chewing gum loved by kids of today and yesterday. Something about it is familiar.
Взаимодействовать. Ну-ка, погоди, еще взаимодействуйте. Сохранюсь. А то начну взаимодействовать, и меня хрен остановишь.
A crinkled chewing gum wrapper. The worn label reads, Tutti Frutti. It smells faintly of apricots with a barely noticeable twinge of cinnamon. You feel compelled to point out that there's nothing fruity about cinnamon. It's a spice derived from tree bark. Good question. There is no answer or secret phrase written on the inside of the wrapper, yet you're drawn to it.
Она одиночная, которая про газонокосильщика. Ну, извините, значит, все, удаляем.
Drawn by regret. Stop before you hurt yourself with a Tutti Frutti wrapper. Can a used wrapper shrug? Seems like that's what the wrapper is doing somehow. This is not about flowers or bark. What is this about? Why are you looking at this wrapper?
Там даже это Power Wash симулятор, он и то кооперативный, который машина, где, ну не только машина, где надо все мыть. Он кооперативный, по-моему, с релиза. Такой потенциал, ну да, устроить там какой-то дерби на газонокосилках, но в том же в этом, в Warfest можно, или как он там, Breakfast, можно это устроить.
You carefully fold the wrapper into a square before putting it back into your pocket, lovingly even. Despite
Так,
a mirror hangs on the
электрохимия,
bathroom wall.
низкие шансы. Ну, 17% это прям очень мало. Бабабуи. А я могу электрохимию повысить с помощью... Я могу еще ее повысить? А что мне электрохимия дает? Физиология, изучение навык, бонус от предметов. А, бонус от предметов.
A mirror hangs on the bathroom wall.
А, нет, стало 28. Ну, 28% это уже, типа...
A mirror hangs on the bathroom wall. It's barely covered in steam. It's like something
Нихуя
snaps
себе.
at you.
С первого
A
раза
nerve
получил.
ending. A thought. A sadness. Your face in the mirror is suddenly clean of the layer that had distorted it for God knows how long. Just like that, it's over. The running gag that your life had become. A sad old man looks back at you.
И этот персонаж, фотка в углу изменилась, он больше, да, не изображает жуткую гримасу. Ёбаный герой играет ёбаный Вартандер. Да проще сказать, во что герой не играет. Ты можешь заходить каждые полчаса, и он каждый раз будет в какой-то новой игре сидеть. Это, блядь, герой. Ему просто нужно во что-нибудь тыкнуть, посидеть, зайти, такой, типа, полчаса там поиграть, такой, не, ну его нахуй. Удаляет, потом заходит во что-нибудь другое. Это же ебучий, сука, герой.
The bed is cold and not particularly inviting, but it's yours. The sheets look awful. The sheets feel at once coarse and clammy against your skin. The bed sags beneath your weight as you stretch out and finally close your eyes. And then sleep doesn't come. Maybe it's the bed's fault. Its synthetic filling has separated into hard lumps. The pillowcase smells oddly. Smells of alcohol and sweat and grease. It barely covers your toes, stretching over your soft belly. This is your body here, intimate and warm, breathing. A bit tense in the muscles. Relax. It's a little better. Colors, scenes, and half-formed phrases still litter your mind. Part of you is still trying to solve the case, isn't it? Something to do with, what was it that the lieutenant said? Union? And it's gone again. Your thoughts lost between the slowing brain waves. Your breathing steadies. A great silence washes over you until your eyelids twitch in your sleep and images start forming.
Че, мы опять с трупом будем разговаривать? Или он в дискошар превратился? А, ну дискошар тоже есть, да. Миленько, миленько.
Do you remember the scent of your childhood? Do you remember your wife's hand on your face? That's right, funky baby. And you just stood there. One hand on the bottle and the other on your dick. Watching her go. Let it all be dragged away from you. Tell me, where are your friends? Human beings have friends, Harry boy. Where the hell are yours? No, it's gone. 3 times gone and never coming back. You failed. You failed me. You failed Elysium. Everything. The Pale and the Islas. On the surface. The outer magnetosphere. Burning, furious truth. 8,000 years of written history. You really dropped the ball, Harry. 4.6 billion people. And you failed every single one of them. You really fucked up. You're not coming back from shit. Thrashing around in that high conductivity state of yours. Bumping into things and acting like a clown. Who are you kidding? You're trying to what? I can't hear you. This is just a word dream now. Jumbled up garbage. The pictures are gone. The bed rises to meet you. A thin, sleep-like state. More glass than velvet, grinding in your head.
So something is wrong. Sleep shouldn't be this bad, this dry, this unnourishing. There's something wrong with your thoughts. Some kind of new type of hangover. Oh yes, party boy, and it's worse than the one before. Just think of the shit you saw. Here it comes too. So soon already. A silent alarm goes off in your head like clockwork. Barely let you sleep at all. Time to go to work in the shit factory.
Охуенно поспали. Я так понимаю, мы нихуя не выспались, да?
Good going, buddy.
Мне только что снился прекраснейший сон, воодушевляющий, придающий сил.
Yes. Wait till you see the one with the chick in it. It's gonna be a good one. You feel even worse this morning than you did last night. You don't know? You don't know? Some broad that messed you up. It'll come to you. It always does. You mean, why are you so tired? Too tired and down to even think? It is worrying, isn't it? You can't be a detective like this. Detectives need to be able to think. It's just that your heart has finally pumped all the speed out of your system, Buster. Time to get some more. You're too weak to say no now. Waking up is the worst part. Maybe somewhere down the line you could decline. Speed is a potent central nervous system stimulant. It kept you propped up all day yesterday, despite your debilitating hangover. How else did you think you even got up from this floor? It's power, man. It's professionalism. It makes you feel like you're young again and ready to detect, ready to go to war against the world. Are you sure? Ready to live as this pathetic shell of yourself for days? Basically, a week? Let's be honest, 2 weeks, maybe 3. You won't make it. Half the town will be dead by then. You will be fired.
Сразу видно, в меня верит.
Suit yourself, slow, sad shell man. See how you do without your spark.
Прибережем пока очки.
You should pick that fat, juicy cigarette butt from the tray, light it up, and smoke the living shit out of it. Who knows what you are? A monster, a murderer, the gnome of Jeroma? You feel like a smoker, especially when you look at that juicy, succulent, seductive cigarette stub, still smoldering deliciously. How very astute of you. This renders it ineffectual. You should look for a whole cigarette, or better yet, an entire pack. Strike that. A carton. Make sure they're all healthy and able-bodied. Then smoke them all.
Да, надо было так сделать с большим энтузиазмом.
Good. They'll make you stronger and better. You're too old to be cool now. But find cigarettes, smoke them, blam. Instantly a cool
Так у этого у
renegade,
Кима же сигареты есть.
a mystical red dragon with smoke rising from his nostrils. Plus, smoking them gives massive bonuses.
Да, например, рак легких. Как тебе такое преимущество? Нихуя тут народу. Погоди, а чем мне давали мои Полицейская волна. Это... А, это тоже электрохимия была, только -1 эквилибристика.
Morning. Looks like we can get to work at once. The union muscle turned up. They look rowdy. We should talk to them. I completely forgot. Sorry, I had a rough night's sleep. It's them by the looks of it. Loud and nasty, just like the manager said. One loose thread less to worry about, and one big problem to replace it. I mean ungovernable. Martinez isn't exactly enthusiastic about the RCM being here. They prefer to be policed by the union. These men here. Men who drink beer for breakfast? There's talk of an armed wing of the union called the Hardy Boys, who are responsible for state policing. I think it's them. Everything points to the dock workers' union. The belt used for hanging him, which may, of course, all be wrong. That would just escalate tensions. In fact, even one more thing before we do. We don't have to talk to them immediately. We can walk right past them, continue with our business.
Yeah, streetwise. Zoom right past. Do it on your own terms. But aren't you curious to know what they have to say about the murder?
They're in no hurry to leave. They think they own the place. Anyway, I leave that choice to you. Whatever you decide is fine by me.
Can I help you?
Just a moment.
She's agitated, judging from the way she keeps pulling at the frayed edge of her blanket.
And there's no public phones nearby?
The closest phone booth is down the coast. Sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am.
Ну да, так-то она сбегать, блин, к этой будке не сможет.
It's fine, I understand. Thank you anyway. I'm glad to see you again, dear. Please don't trouble yourself about me, sweetie. I was just hoping to make a call, but the Whirling's phone line isn't working. The union office probably has a phone, but I can't really get there. Or to the phone booth down the coast. And Gary's phone is dead too. The manager was vague about it.
Why would he be vague about phone problems? This is something to look into later. Ask God, maybe.
To let the young woman who's house-sitting for us know that we may be delayed. Morel, my husband, and our friend Gary were supposed to get back by Monday night, but they're still missing, and I haven't heard from them. I was also hoping she'd heard from Morel.
A little missing persons puzzle might just be the thing to take your mind off the hangover.
That's just it. This isn't like him at all. He always plans his expeditions so carefully. But you have more important things to worry about.
More important than a missing expedition? I don't know. Expeditions often lead to something interesting.
Just some field work, sweetie. Morel is a highly trained scientist. He and his assistant Gary are studying an extremely rare species of insect. But they should have returned by now. They were just going down the coast across the water lock to set a few traps. He said they'd be back on Monday. What could be keeping them?
The waterlock. That was broken. Could this be it?
Oh, sweetie, it's nothing like that. Gary's as loyal as they come. I trust him with my husband's life any day. Oh my, what happened to the water lock? Well, whatever the cause, I'm thankful. To both of you. You've spared me another sleepless night.
You're welcome, ma'am.
I hate to ask, but if your investigation takes you to the other side of the coast, please do keep an eye out for my husband.
Yes, some left-field scientific research is exactly what you need right now. Funk up that vanilla murder investigation.
And if you see him, let him know Lena is waiting for him here at the Whirling. He gets so tangled up in his work that he may not know the water lock's been repaired, and it's cold out there. Oh, you're such a dear. Thank you, sweetie. Oh, yes. A zoologist. A cryptozoologist, to be more precise.
It's a pseudoscience that attempts to legitimize research into mythological beasts and urban legends.
Лейтенант настроен скептически.
That's one opinion, yes. And people are entitled to their opinions.
She's used to playing off such insults casually, but they still affect her.
My apologies, ma'am. I did not mean to undermine your hobby.
It's not a hobby, dear. It's a subfield of zoology, one specializing in animal species that are so exceedingly rare that many assume them to be extinct or even fictitious.
Какой смысл просто изучать вымерших или вымышленных животных? Какая польза в этом? Особенно вымышленных.
Searching for such species called cryptids is difficult and often thankless, and frankly, many scientists are too lazy to do it. Universities these days are rarely interested in supporting real research.
The quality of research at Revacholian universities has been on the decline, but you doubt there was ever a time when cryptozoology was embraced by the academic elite.
Oh dear, I'm not sure where to begin. Well, his expression is slightly grumpy, but his eyes are always bright and curious, like a small boy's. And his palms are quite coarse from all the field work, but he's quite gentle.
You can't go around Revachol feeling grown men's hands. If you want to find her husband, you'll need more concrete information.
Oh, well, he's a bit shorter than you, but with a larger frame, and he has longish white hair, usually a bit uncombed. You might say wild, even.
The lieutenant pulls out his notebook and begins jotting down the...
One other thing, he'll likely have all kinds of field gear on him, even if he's not out in the reeds, you know, just in case. We'll be celebrating our 16th anniversary this autumn. Not the most numerically satisfying anniversary, but I like the less obvious milestones even more somehow. Via dating agency, I'm ashamed to say. I was looking to get back into the scene after recovering from my accident. And he just divorced.
Ну, сейчас будет вопрос про какой
Well,
несчастный случай с ней произошел.
She's skipping over some important parts.
Да.
Perhaps you'll find out more later.
I hope I've been useful. Oh, sweetie, it's fascinating. But I shouldn't bore you with entomological minutiae.
The lieutenant gives you a sideways glance.
Сейчас мне до интересных фактов о насекомых.
Well, it's a phasmid technically, but...
Ah yes, Phasmatodia, a diverse group of insects whose bodies resemble twigs, leaves, that sort of thing. Ghost insects, colloquially.
Where other phasmids imitate sticks or leaves, this one's a living reed. It disguises itself among the reeds here on the Insulindian coast. Hence its name, the Insulindian phasmid. Perhaps you'll end up co-discovering the phasmid with us, officers.
I knew it. We're gonna be chasing made-up insects with cryptozoologists.
Ну, не самое плохое времяпрепровождение ловить вымышленных насекомых с
It's
криптозоологами.
not made up, officer. I can assure you. It's simply elusive, so much so that most establishment zoologists doubt it exists at all. Well, some teenagers making out in the reeds saw one. They didn't know what it was, of course, but there was a brief article in a local newspaper about their encounter with a ghost insect that looks like the reeds. Gary sent us the clipping. Of course, most phasmid sightings turn out to be false alarms, but their description matched the Insulindian phasmid perfectly, and they didn't even know what they were looking at.
Enthusiasm has wiped the worry from her face. Her eyes sparkle behind her glasses.
I suppose I have something of a personal connection to the Insulindian phasmid. All scientists have their little hobby horses. Not at all. Why else would it hide itself so carefully? Oh, I doubt it. No one gets into cryptozoology for the money, sweetie. Yes, it can blend in almost perfectly among the reeds. It's how it stayed hidden all these years. Centuries even.
Мне нравится, с каким энтузиазмом он расспрашивает про вымышленного, блин, жучка какого-то.
Oh dear. I'm afraid I'm not explaining this very well. It is very special. Morel can explain it all much better. I wish you could hear him describe it. Then you don't. Oh, hello, dear. There you are again.
You're an enthusiastic idiot.
Еще раз. Ты полный энтузиазм и идиот. Ну вот я как раз и говорю, энтузиазм у него зашкаливает. Но при этом он, конечно, идиот еще тот.
Oh, hello, dear. There you are again.
There's really no point in manipulating anyone. She'd be only too pleased to tell you about her work. Go on and ask.
Oh, I'd be delighted. Truth be told, I could really use the company too.
One cryptid, not a couple. One. This won't turn into some kind of cryptid extravaganza.
Один маленький криптидик, клянусь.
He nods and assumes a waiting posture. Cryptids, cryptids. Let's hear about all the interesting cryptids. Ooh, tough choice there.
Yes, it's the kind green ape. Half war story, half undiscovered species in the genus Homo. Yes, it was reported by soldiers in South Safra during the war. The kind green ape would visit bunkers during the night, healing wounded soldiers with its saliva. Yes, it has amazing healing qualities. Some soldiers reported growing back limbs, regaining their sight. Indeed, there is. It's our closest relative among the cryptids. Same taxonomic family, different genus. Which is to say, the kind green ape is a species with which we share a common ancestor and that evolved parallel to our own, just like your partners.
Ma'am, you are confusing him.
Он как будто ребенок с ней разговаривает, и батя такой говорит: дамочка, вы сбиваете его с толку.
Please don't misunderstand me, either of you. human, as it is used in everyday speech, is hardly a taxonomic category. For all intents and purposes, you can be thought of as human, though Saelites do have some distinguishing characteristics, different advantages, if you will.
Yes, advantages such as the flakier texture of Zeolite earwax, or so I've heard. Nothing inspires pride in one species quite like speculative evolutionary biology. Perhaps we've had enough of that for today.
Of course, dear.
Ну, я Киму обещал, что об одном криптидике мы поспрашиваем. Все. Я не буду обманывать Кима.
You see a heavy steel door with the door does not.
Ничего, дверь. Мы еще тебя победим.
Let me handle this. Detective disorientated. Are you still wondering where you are? This is Martinez, in case you've forgotten. I advise you not to overstay your welcome.
Что-то она какая-то...
Her entire character.
Да,
has
да, да,
shifted.
да.
This young woman is cold as ice.
That's right. I am not a gardener. I'm a legal counselor for the Dock Workers Union. So let's get to it. You're looking for Titus Hardy? You think he has information that will help you? That's Titus. Talk to him. But know this. I'll be keeping an eye on you. No strong arming. Nothing official. The District of Martinez does not recognize your authority to make arrests.
It doesn't matter if you recognize our authority. We will make an arrest if we have to.
She says nothing. Her glare speaks for her.
Like I already told you, I'm a legal counselor. Do you have hearing problems? What you want is of no significance, officer. Don't test your authority. In Martinez, you are no one.
Она больно выебистая, с учетом того, что мы оба вооружены. И нам нихуя за это не будет, если мы начнем стрелять. Не, ну если мы потом как бы документально можем оправдать нашу стрельбу. Я думаю, Ким начнет стрелять первым, так что...
What are we going to do to you? The union isn't going to do anything to you. It is not a crime syndicate. It is a labor organization.
Goddamn right it is.
If anything, it is the RCM who do things
Ты
to
чё
people.
такая агрессивная, блядь?
Aggressive. You make your living enforcing violence. These people are just dock workers.
So you were spying on us, and now you represent murder suspects. Just dock workers.
Listen, you moral intern lackeys. You're a mob
Шавки
enforcing the unlawful
Нихера себе.
privatization of Revachol. 20 fat men in the Occident are stealing it all, and you're their bodyguards.
Fuck yeah.
So ask what you came to ask, or get back to your commanders.
Приватизация незаконная, крутая, прикольная.
No one is emotional here. Do your job. Ask your questions, then leave.
What's this? We're getting reports of normal, reasonable, temperate, political opinions somewhere in Martinez.
Должно быть, ты ошибаешься. Я настоящий радикал. Должен быть, то есть, здравым.
The air suddenly feels calmer, more transparent in a strangely tender way. Perhaps it's the hangover. Perhaps it's a temporary surge of serotonin. It's time to become a citizen of the kingdom of conscience.
Ни слова больше, где тут у вас паспорт получают.
It is not a place. It is a moment in time that can only arise in the right circumstances. In all of human history, it's only been achieved a handful of times. Incrementally. Yawn, you'd get there faster with a little speed. History's greatest catastrophes have been brought about by people trying to make the world a better place. That's the genius of Dolores Day. She recognized that progress is meaningless if its gains are lost because of instability. Real, lasting change can only come about gradually, increment by increment. Tisk tisk, just because you live in the present doesn't mean you have the right to place your needs above the needs of the future. You may never live to see the kingdom of conscience. Your children may not. Even your grandchildren might not. But that's no excuse not to keep working. What rationality? What sang-froid? What a fucking joke.
Электрохимия что-то как-то не очень довольно.
Do you believe the status quo is preferable to chaos and bloodshed? Then you've never lived through real chaos. Sometimes, in the face of great disaster, defending the status quo is progress. The kingdom is difficult to comprehend and even more difficult to describe, partly because humanity will need to discard many of the categories that define and limit it today. The kingdom of conscience is post-capitalist, post-national. It's also post-industrial, post-ideological, and even post-sexual. Slow down, Mr. Reason. Did you miss the part about compromising and taking things slow? That's right. Remember, real democracy is just around the corner for Revachol. When that real democracy kicks in, a long time from now.
Так, что у меня? Королевство совести, -2 сумрак. Так, что у нас? Королевство, -2 сумрак. А сумрак у нас вообще это у нас что? Дает своему телу, запугивайте людей. Ну, может, наоборот, хорошо, если -2 сумрак. Душевная боль велика, но демократия подбирается незаметно. Постепенно начинаешь замечать изменения в погоде, когда идет снег, кажется мягче, снежинка опускается на терзан треугольник, когда идет дождь, там теплее, демократия приходит на своем регионе, день организации, сознание, якое может быть иначе, идея коалиции, журналисты, хорошее понятие, не только хорошее. Что будет, планы вполне. Ну, пока как-то -2 эмпатия, -2 визуальный анализ. -2 авторитет, -1 логика. Но пока что, ну, такое все. Ну, давай попробуем. Королевство совести. Просто интересно, чем это все кончится. Денежка.
This is where you say your bit.
Detective.
Hey, dipshit. You hard of hearing or something? The boss man's talking to you.
Do not let their squeals disturb your serenity. These are but simple peasants, sire.
What, is he fucking kidding? This guy high or something?
Hey, asshole, up here. We're talking to you.
We're looking for Titus Hardy.
Wow. The RCM sent us some big dick cops.
Real big dick cops. Look at them. Reckless. Swinging in the wind.
Yeah, look at the big dick on that cop. Can't tell a dick that big what to do.
Must be something in the water in Jamrock.
Yeah, gave him real nice big dicks.
Yeah. Anyways.
You might want to start asking your questions now. It's not going to get better than this.
Do a head count first. Connect these men to the tracks you saw in the yard. Chances are they're going to match. Starting from the right, boot size 44, blonde man, in his 30s, overbearingly masculine. Sitting on his right, standard working boots, size 45 or 46, eldest in the room, probably mid-50s, smoker, quiet. Across at the other table, hobnailed working boots, size 43, gang tattoos, Mesk or Sarah Mauritian, in his late 30s, early 40s. He spent his youth in Villa Labos, a housing project in the Jamrock quarter. There were incarcerations, hard to say what else. The ink is fading. And then, standard working boot, steel reinforced toes, size 46, the big dick, wide at the shoulders and lean at the hips, rugby cap, fingerless gloves, and numerous scars, a little under 40. The emblem on his vest says Rowing Club. A little patch below it reads T. Hardy, Captain. In the far corner, standard working boot, steel reinforced toes, size 44, 40-something, non-alcoholic beverage in hand. You squint. Is that a plectrum? Size 41, with the light step. Not a child, after all. An older man with a rat face, mean, watery eyes, and 2 front teeth missing. In the middle, heaving and wheezing, big guy, boot size 46, deep marks, probably carried the victim over. He alone is 130 kilos. Add the man in armor, and you could easily exceed 220. In conclusion, these 7 are the actors on the crime scene. The footprints were theirs, but there's a discrepancy. Exactly. You've stood there for about 4 seconds, not saying anything. Hit them with questions. Where's the 8th Hardy?
The fuck is with you, fella? What are you talking about, madman? There's no 8th Hardy boy. There's 7 of us and we're all here. Or what? You want to be the 8th Hardy boy? We ain't hiring.
Actually, boss, we've been talking and we think she could maybe...
She? So there's an 8th Hardy and it's a Hardy girl? Who might it be? Elizabeth?
Shut the fuck up, Glenn! I do the talking here. Now what the fuck do you want, cop?
It has to be good, if he won't let you pursue it. Looks like the lieutenant thinks so too.
So let me get this straight. There is an 8th Hardy boy. It's a she, and you don't like us talking about her?
That's right. We're not talking about this. This is a private Hardy Boys matter. Nothing to do with your shit. End. You're not cops here. Don't go digging around if you don't want a bullet in the back of your head. I'm watching you.
Good. We are all watching each other. Officer, your question.
There's no point in pushing it further, he thinks. This is already a victory. We'll learn more about this 8th Hardy sooner or later.
So, you're not just here to swing your big dick. You're here for the pretty boy. A real looker, that one. Stinks like shit, too.
They love him, boss. Spend all day digging around in there. Can't get enough of that pretty boy smell.
Funny. But my partner and I have a serious matter to discuss with you.
You mean these boots? We all got a pair. We wore them the night we took the pretty boy out back and hung him by the neck. Yeah, we did this. Together. All of us. Until he was dead. That's why our prints are all over the scene.
There's a catch hidden somewhere. He didn't confess so that you could take them all away. It's too simple.
There is no catch. These 7 honest men have all equally come forth to tell you what happened, so that you don't waste any more of your time.
All 7 together. They're diluting responsibility. It's an anti-arrest tactic.
How many people have you sent to the Shays? Ever felt remorse for them?
Chaise électrique is the method of capital punishment in Revachol under the Coalition. During the suzerain's reign, it used to be the firing squad.
Or send them to Reunion to rot. For 20 years. For life.
По правде сказать, я столько пью, что я уже не помню, кого отправил за решетку, кого расстреляли, что там, где, куда.
Oh, so you are just a simple, well-meaning man, eh? Ever been in solitary? Prison is a charter. That's what it is.
So is hanging a man, slowly, without breaking his neck.
Are you deaf? There will be no singling anyone out. You can't arrest a Hardy boy without arresting all Hardy boys. Do you think you could do that? Do you think you could arrest them all?
A trick question. Don't let her lead the conversation.
That's for the courts in Les Jardins to decide, not for the officer making an arrest. What you can do right now is go back to your station and write a report.
No. We'll stay here and discuss what happened that night.
You don't have to keep answering his questions.
I know, Lizzie. Relax. We killed him last Sunday night. Seemed like a good way to end the week.
Known him? We don't associate with scum like that, asshole.
Yeah! Who do you think we are?
Quiet. He came around about 3 weeks ago when that Pines cow first sailed into town. Happy?
By the Pines cow, you mean the representative for Wild Pines? The shipping company you are striking against?
Стул, да, подменяй мне.
No, I mean the Pines cow. The stupid ass cow they sent in to fuck us over. But you know what? Why don't you ask her about the pretty boy? I'm sure she has interesting things to say when you ask her hard enough.
That's enough insinuation for today, Titus.
Why? 'Cause he was worthless mercenary scum. And he stepped out of line.
What kind of mercenary?
The kind that shows up when you start a strike. The experienced kind, too. Had Cohoy and Semenine written all over him.
A live grenade. Right here in our bar.
I can't prove it, but I know he was sent by the Wild Pines. They hire merc shit like that. Story of every strike from here to Samara.
'Cause one night, he walked straight up to the mic and said, I'm RNA's goddamn special forces, and I'm gonna fuck you all.
Really?
Yeah, really. Had a gin and tonic up there, sang some RNA's paratrooper song, and said he's gonna fuck everyone.
We couldn't believe it either, but he fucking did, right there. Like some kind of animal.
Sire, the tale is true. This is a serious violation of the karaoke code.
Серьезное нарушение кодекса караоке.
Wrong? He harassed women, raped one, harassed workers, threatened to kill some as a warning.
From rape to harassment to threats of violence. Why the strange de-escalation? He regrets mentioning it. Hopes you didn't notice.
To kill us all, if we don't open the gates, if we don't let the scabs in, if we don't bend over. That was before he started coming here.
Yeah, he said it was his favorite joint now. Started coming here every night. Drinking, grabbing girls. Grabbed one of ours mid-karaoke, right there on the stage.
He grabbed someone?
Yeah. This girl's on the mic. A beautiful girl, young. Gets into the second verse of Lover Lake. The fucker grabs her legs, starts screaming. Show me your cunt! Why don't you show me your cunt? Then,
Show me
gets
your
knocked on the
cunt!
head with a wine bottle. Doesn't even fall down.
Aren't you fucking listening? My man is talking to you.
Yeah, me and Eugene got around. Aren't you fucking listening?
There's something odd here.
Да, явно не сходится.
Seems like they don't want to talk about that rape Titus mentioned. Why not? This is a serious allegation. Make them talk about it.
No, you're not getting a name. That's a Martinez matter. And I'm not discussing it with you clowns.
There's nothing you can do for now. He's stonewalling you.
We hanged him up by his neck until he got real still. Wasn't that obvious, copper?
Didn't they teach you anything at the cop school, idiot?
This is where an autopsy would come in handy. You have to work with what you know.
Titus, you don't have to clarify anything.
We overpowered him, dragged his unconscious body to the tree, put a noose around his neck, and hanged him till he was dead and steady.
Then we left him for seagulls, maggots, and you fucks.
Make them a bit more uncomfortable first. Then see if it all adds up.
Разве он не был профессиональным
With
убийцей?
numbers, asshole. How do you think? You're right, Lizzie. I've done enough explaining here.
No, he hasn't. Not yet.
Weren't you fucking listening? The fucker came to our bar. It happened right here.
Titus is solid as a rock, and so are a few others. But Elaine, who looks like he might be Titus's right-hand man, the least antsy of the bunch, definitely not his first time being questioned by the police. This little rat-faced fellow is solid too. Always fidgety, yes, but no change there. Him neither. Mostly keeps to his tomato juice, or whatever he's got there.
Толстячок. Он весь потеет, и вот тут зашли, пока что он глазом не делает, наступить беседу распределен.
No.
Он скидывает покрытое испаренное лицо, используя на шапке боится порвущихся
Of
прядей.
course he's having trouble breathing. Just look at how fucking fat he is.
Fuck off, Shanky. Angus is a powerful guy. All muscle.
Keep your eye on this powerful guy. Sooner or later, he's going to break like a piece of twig.
And fuck you, too, copper. Picking on Angus like this. We're done with this schoolyard shit. And just so you know, he doesn't have trouble breathing.
This one is a stone wall. You won't get more out of them about the night of the murder.
Like what, copper? Yeah, lawman. Why don't you?
It's almost an anthropological sight, watching him try to assert dominance over you.
Not in the arresting mood?
By your side, the lieutenant keeps his hand away from his holster. While the little rat-faced man reaches into his sleeve, there's a knife in there. Some of the others reach for their belts. Their eyes are light.
Wise move. You made the right choice there. Now make another one and get the fuck out of our booth. We're not gonna do this again.
Nothing. Your investigation here is done. Leave Martinez, go back to your stations.
I think we're going to stick around, thanks. Some things don't add up here, Titus. I've done this job for long enough to know that people don't just confess to first-degree murder. Even if it is a group responsibility, we're going to look into this.
Good luck with that. You've heard everything a rent-a-cop is gonna hear from us, real law officials. You're lucky you didn't get a beating.
Так, ну какие-то выполнены хотя бы. Снимите свой авторитет в глазах. Но у меня есть очки не потраченные. Я могу... Пам! И плюс у меня есть что-нибудь... Скорость реакции. А это что мне дает? Энциклопедия. И одна пуля у меня есть, окей.
Looks like the circus left town, but the clowns are still here.
Не, авторитета мне не хватает. Ладно, мы еще вернемся. А этот просто рыгал, по-моему, в прошлый раз. Не очень конструктивная беседа получилась. Ничего не поменялось. Те же ублюдские дети и тоже труп.
In the morning light, the white on blue police livery on the motor carriage cannot but catch your eye. Do something important? Something murder-related? There's always something important. Doesn't mean you can't take a moment to admire this piece of machinery. This is a Caprice Canema, the Caprice Motor Corps follow-up to their highly successful workhorse, Caprice 40, and the answer to the Lum's racing breed, Ferv series. With its air-cooled, rear-mounted 12-cylinder compression ignition engine, driving the rear wheels through a 4-speed manual gearbox, the Canema is able to reach 100 kilometers per hour in 13.5 seconds and go on to a top speed of 180 kilometers an hour.
13,5 секунд до 100, это, блин, это не очень впечатляюще. Не, ну для вот такой, наверное, да.
The high center of balance is offset by a large battery bank mounted at the bottom of the cabin, feeding all the auxiliary systems and making the Canema effectively a mobile power plant. Due to a quite steep price tag, it is very unusual to see one in police livery.
You want to take a closer look? 130.
I reckon that's a 7-liter V12 there.
7-литровый V12.
Man, that's got to be a major advancement over the KR18
Погоди.
GU engine on the old Caprice 40.
130, это он сказал, лошадей? 130 лошадей от 7-литрового V12? Ну, солидно. У меня в машине обычный 2-литровый, блин, там стоит на 150 лошадей. А тут, блин, 7-литровый V12, сука, на 130. Это времена как раз вот эти маслкаров зарождения. Когда у америкосов были охеренно огромные тяжеленные машины с огромными двигателями, вот с такими вот показателями. 7-литровый V12 это нормальный, обычный объем двигателя.
Yeah, you know it?
Да-да-да, так, по верхам. Чугунный корпус, впрыскивание кривой камер, верхний с привода на 2 цепях, 2 клапана, цилиндр, гидравлическая регулировка зазоров.
Yes, that's right. I'm very impressed that you know these things. Yes, an extraordinary machine.
It's nice and all, but why so modest? Put some zing into it. Flare it up. Slam it down. Helium headlights would improve the range and quality of the visual field a lot.
Actually, I have a pair at home. Just haven't gotten around to fitting them yet. I need to lay some wiring for the ballast first. You want to help? Thank you for the offer. That might be fun. Let's do the case first, though, alright?
He liked the idea.
Ну, понятное дело, понравилось. Еще бы и не понравилось. Будет весело. Этот все там стоит так.
A rusting control panel with loose wires. This panel usually closes the... You pull the lever all the way up until the metal clicks against the contact pins. You hear a soft click. Nothing happens. Nothing happened. A spring brings the lever back to its... Wasn't there a sign over there saying functionality will be...
А, в среду. Мне почему-то казалось, что во вторник. Ну, тогда придется до среды этому чуваку ждать. Чё. Извините. Так, а что у нас еще есть? Этот там одеждой торгует. О, погоди, а это что такое? Ну ты еще медленнее иди. Что это такое? А, хилка. Опа, погоди. Тут какой-то читатель появился. Точнее, читательница.
Yes? Hello? Me? No one. I'm just a working class woman.
She doesn't really want to be disturbed that much. If she's such a working class woman, why isn't she working?
Not all the time. Right now I'm browsing books. Even a working class woman needs something to read. It is. I know you are. What with?
What with? A lot of things. For example, people tend to go missing.
My husband? No, he's not.
Где же он
I
тогда?
don't know. At home now? Out drinking with his friends? Working?
Ну, не знаю, может, у вас муж пропал? Муж? Нет, он не пропал. А где он тогда? Не знаю. А все.
Where is this going, officer?
К чему вы клоните, офицер?
Yes, but I don't really need to know where my husband is. Not all the... No. Of course he's not. It's not like he's a pocket watch. I wouldn't just lose him.
It's got to be something else then. Why else would you be asking her if it wasn't?
No, absolutely not.
She gives you a short nod and shifts her attention back to books.
I don't mean to disrespect, sir, but you are being a bit of a cockatoo here.
For what it's worth, I agree. But cockatoos can't be stopped when they get ladies. It's better to indulge him at this point.
Nothing. Go read up on them if...
Maybe you should. What if the cockatoo is your astral captain? Or your heraldic bird?
Wonderful. The story is open.
Her hands move over the book covers. The tips of her fingers look rough, stained with yellow. It seems like she has spent a lot of time at work, smoking. Another comrade. Years of labor are pressing down on her shoulders. She deserves a hug for all the work she's done for mankind. You step in and close your arms around this foreign body, wandering astray in touch. There's a small movement beneath your hands.
What is happening?
She seems to be confused. Your hands are wrapped around her polyester coat. The fabric feels cold, moist from the sea nearby. The situation is oddly intimate. Your cheek is pressed against her shoulder. Her hand is trapped between your chest.
What are you doing, officer? Fighting for it how? Oh.
И как же вы за него сражаетесь? По одному объятию за раз.
I guess it's better than nothing. Keep fighting on, my fellow comrade. Is there anything else?
The woman before you nods.
Просто на пустом месте что-то поспрашивали, пропал ли муж, пропали ли дети, пропал ли какаду, а потом просто обнялись, и все. И все сразу как-то вот растаяла она сразу. Так, мы хотели поговорить с этой бабой на корабле. А, погоди. А, мне краска нужна. Краска нужна, да-да-да. Мне нужна краска. Надо было еще появиться, я был начать. Ну, что ты все пошляешь? Абсолютно безобидная ситуация. Тебе вот надо было про свои вот эти вот сиськи-письки да поебаться. Ну, что ты тут, Росомаха? Ну, ей-богу. Тебе 5 лет, что ли? Тут вообще не было ни намека на это. А ты сразу все опошлил. Ну, зачем ты так? Ну?
A silk scarf is tied around her throat.
Good morning, officers. I'm Joyce. Joyce L. Messier. I represent the board of Wild Pines, the owners of the harbour. You gentlemen must be from the RCM. I'm glad to see you here.
Like steel, there is strength there. If she wanted, she could sink her nails deep into your skin.
I was dispatched to handle a strike, not a lynching. Anything I can do to assist the RCM in this matter, I will, gladly.
That is good to hear, madame. My colleague will take the lead on this interview. I should let you know that he is recovering from an unusual medical episode. Very unusual. But I can assure you of his ultimate competency.
There's a trace of irony in his voice. Mischief, even. This is a tactic. It happens quicker than a shooting star. But did the lieutenant just wink at you?
How interesting. I wish you a swift recovery. In the meanwhile, you have my full cooperation, and the full cooperation of the Wild Pines group. What we do. I'm afraid I don't speak for Wild Pines as a whole. It's a giant undertaking.
There was a touch of discomfort there. She wants to merely represent.
The Pines' core competency is logistics. Container shipping, freight, that sort of thing. See those airships there, blinking? Those are the shipping side of things. And that is the terminal. Another subdivision deals with energy, oil and gas exploration, offshore platforms.
The Wild Pines Group is one of the original Revacholian Indo-tribes. Companies awarded royal monopolies by the king, the suzerain himself, centuries ago. The king is long gone, but several of the Indo-tribes remain. Saint-Baptiste, Elysium, an unknown entity known as Brightest Star.
Why, thank you. I'm not at liberty to discuss the company balance sheet, but I can tell you that last year, the company booked more than 20 billion real in revenue. 20 billion is a large number, but the conglomerate employs 72,000 people. They all need to be paid. Then there are capital improvements, interest payments. A conglomerate the size of the Wild Pines is like a shark. If it stops moving, it will die. Then what becomes of those 72,000 families? It's a tremendous responsibility. They started as an exploration and cargo fleet conducting trade between the Samaran and Insulindian Isolas 250 years ago, when pine ships explored the South Seminese and charted
опять вот куча регионов каких-то вымышленных меня вбрасывают, как будто мне это о чем-то должно говорить. Единственное, что 250 лет назад, то есть это было достаточно давно. Все, а тут какой-то самарийский, островалийский, какие-то тут южно-семенийские... Души не ебу, где это, что это? Какое это имеет значение?
Vessels pass through the great unrest to re-emerge with apricots in tow. The logic of the system is totalizing. It's taken everything from its employees to build it. You know more than you let on. Certainly it helped, but most of the original Indo tribes have failed or been absorbed. To survive, Wild Pines had to grow and adapt. No suzerain did that. You mean aside from being the terminal's legal owners, who are responsible for moving 8% of the world's cargo? There are no minor cogs in the system. Each terminal must be accounted for, lest the entire system break. Every hiccup in such a system means thousands lose their jobs, the world over. I'm here to assure that doesn't happen.
Сколько вопросов.
Why, yes I am. Of course there are. We're on an archipelago. How else are you supposed to get around? Yes, we are. We are on Le Caillou.
Technically, The neighboring Ozon and Fas Alamer island groups are archipelagos.
Еще
One,
ничего не
like
говорящих
Elysium,
мне
by
несколько
contrast,
названий.
is a single fertile landmass, the fourth largest island in the world. It is not an archipelago.
Если бы у меня был, как его, глобус местного мира, я хотя бы как-то себе ориентировочно представлял, где что находится. Но так как я не вижу ни карты, ничего, поэтому эти названия, что тут рядом, что тут слева, что тут сверху, что тут снизу, все эти названия. Ну, то есть, вроде бы кажется, да, насколько здесь все проработано. Кучу каких-то вот они, тут какая-то страна, здесь у нее какая-то история, тут что-то. Но они вот просто вот как с какой-то вот... Какая-то рандомная женщина, которой мне по квесту нужно поговорить, представитель какой-то компании, но вбрасывает в меня всю эту дополнительную информацию, которая мне абсолютно никак не пригодится.
Okay, if you want to get technical, the point is we're all on islands here, and sail is still the most expedient way to get from one island to another, especially when you're in a hurry to resolve a strike. I haven't seen anyone else drive a souped-up Capri Kenema motor carriage either.
Откуда она знает, на какой машине? Она у нас в другом конце города стоит.
Actually, that motor carriage has been specially issued to serve as a patrol and pursuit vehicle. It's for crossing long distances in the greater Ravachol industrial harbor. It's not a toy.
Neither is this. A toy, I mean. It's a machine for crossing long distances in the Bay of Revachol, between the city and the islands.
You need to make this lady admit she's only riding around on this boat because she's rich. Before you do, it would be pertinent to ask other questions. Gather more info on this boat of hers.
The boat? No. It is called Cor de Leyte 19 because that's the type of sloop it is. It's a pleasure craft, a 19 pacer. It also happens to be rated for Category 1 racing. Though these days I mainly use it for business. My sloop? I like it a lot. It's the eel's hips, baby.
I'm enjoying this part of the interview. It has so little to do with the murder we're investigating.
Это был сарказм, я такой. Такая отличная беседа. Совершенно никакого отношения не имеет к расследованию, которое мы ведем. Но мне просто интересно, какая у нее яхта. Ким, что ты портишь мне всю малину?
Officer, I assure you I'm a highly qualified pleasure craft operator.
The crowns of her teeth are porcelain, white as the boat's hull as she smiles.
Ну, я бы не сказал, что яхта прямо у нее сверкает белизной. Если у нее и зубы такие же, то в принципе...
Her nonchalance might be related to something called the Wayfarer Act, a law that says she doesn't need a license. Sly Fox, you're not aggressive enough to harass her further on this.
Oh my, the E word. You mean to say that it's a symbol of conspicuous consumption? That I'm a member of the ruling class?
Точнissimo! Это классовая борьба, детка.
Detective, may I remind you that Mrs. Messier is a professional negotiator?
Похоже, он не очень-то верит, что тебе удастся одолеть ее один на
Then
один.
what does that say? Does it say docking reserved for residents of Rue de Saint-Ghislain, 33A? 33A? This old proletarian haunt here? As I said, plenty of people drive boats of all social
Парируй,
strata.
быстро! Сука, да как так-то? 72%! Как ты мог облажаться?
She takes a sip.
Okay.
С минуты на минуту.
Nothing happens for quite a while.
As they do.
The thoughts happen inside his brain.
It doesn't.
My, It's as if there's a tiny spinner on the side of his head and he's reeling thoughts out.
Except he isn't.
Мысль придет прямиком с головы в рот, и тогда я произнесу.
Of course. Lieutenant, I truly don't understand what...
I told you his methods are unconventional.
Богом клянусь, обычно голова у меня хорошо работает. В жопу все это, я пошел. Просто сам себя уничтожил. Богом клянусь, я обычно прям вообще креативлю только так.
Kingdom of Conscience. The Kingdom of Conscience will be exactly as it is.
Королевство, так, сила воли, лимит улучшен, повышение, да, лимит улучшен, повышение. Вместо диалога +1 к боевому духу. Не, ну в принципе это нормальная тема. Но я, пожалуй, загружусь. Я хочу, сука, уделать ее в разговоре. Вот подбешивает то, что это... Разговоры долгие, и где-то ближе к концу только у тебя вот появляется момент, где тебе нужно там вот проявить что-то, показать там шансы какие-то. Просто бесит, что вот сейчас, если я хочу попробовать победить ее, мне придется пролистать весь диалог заново.
A striking woman.
Good morning, Officer. Joyce L. Messier. I'm glad to...
Likes.
I was just...
That is good too.
There's a trace. It happens quick.
How interesting. I wish you were... What we...
There was a touch of discomfort there. She...
The Pines, and that is...
The Wild Pines Group. Son Baptiste. Elysium.
Why, thank you. I'm not at liberty. 20 billion. A conglomerate the size... They started. Centuries of care, deliberation, and madness have gone... You know more than you let on. You mean aside from being the terminal's legal owners, there are no minor cogs in the system. Each terminal must... Why, yes I am. Of course there are. Yes, we are.
Technically.
Okay, if you want to get technical, I haven't seen...
Actually, it's for cross...
Neither is this.
You need to make this late. Before you do, it will be pertinent.
The boat? No, it's a pleasure craft. And my sloop?
I'm enjoying this part of the interview.
Officer.
The Crown, her nonchalance, might...
Oh my, the E word.
Detective.
Then what does 33A? This old proletariat...
Your synapses flesh.
Твои нейронные сети просто пылают.
You mean Eel's hips. But point taken. I am a bourgeois woman, and this is my fast, light, interminably bourgeois boat.
Как ты быстро сломалась.
Good. Everything. Right up to, but not including, trade secrets. First, you'd have to repeal the Emergencies Act of Trade in Aliments that gives me the right to silence. It's quite the octopus.
The octopus that straddles Revachon. The Emergencies Act is the cornerstone of post-war Revachon, inseparable from the world it created.
Why? By throwing off half a century of foreign domination under the Coalition. Unfortunately for you, the Coalition also leases you the right to police West Revachol.
You'd be shooting yourself in the foot, in other words.
But I am derailing us. You wanted to know about the strike. I believe the official title is Senior Labour Negotiator. In practice, I'm a grocery clerk. I relay the union's demands to Wild Pines and return with Wild Pines' counteroffer.
And how are the talks going?
They're not. That's the problem. The union stopped all negotiations a week ago, after that awful lynching took place.
Wait, she just admitted that the lynching and the strike are connected.
Now they won't even let me into the harbour. There's a 2-meter 20 racist behemoth blocking the gates. What can I say? The Union employs a giant covered in tattoos. A racist giant. I guess that's part of their big tent organization now. Yes, I believe there is a connection, but that's a subject for later. Let's say I was not making the kind of progress I'd hoped for when I first arrived.
And when did you first arrive?
I arrived 3 weeks ago.
Ни хрена
Yes,
себе.
in the middle of February. The bay was still partially frozen then. I prefer to do these things on site, like the RCM.
But the strike began in December.
I wasn't the original negotiator here. I took over after Mr. Gaumont hit a wall with Mr. Clare, the union boss. Mr. Clare refused to speak with Gaumont despite concessions he'd granted the union in prior negotiations.
This isn't the first time the union has gone on strike?
Heavens no. There have been 2 prior strikes. Both times the union won significant concessions, including overtime pay and a medical plan. This time their demands are more, I guess you could say, aggressive.
Ну, потому что пошли на уступки целых 2 раза, и поэтому с чего им считать, что в 3-й раз у них не получится? Поэтому они с каждым разом все больше и больше требуют. В принципе, как бы, я не знаю, почему они так удивляются от этого. Дали слабину, вот. Получайте.
Ludicrous even. It's meant.
Mr. Clare told him to... how did he put it? Fuck off, midget. Gaumont is short of stature, you see. Keep in mind, this is a negotiator Mr. Clare has worked with before, and who was more than fair with him and the union. There are leaflets everywhere, and banners. What did they say again? Oh yes, every worker, a member of the board.
Most of the workers probably don't know what that means.
In its defense, another said, demand democracy. Pretty tame stuff compared to every worker, a member of the board. It's quite simple, you see. Every time the Wild Pines group makes a decision, about what? About anything really, it needs the signature of each of the 2,200 workers in its Martinez terminal.
Да вы стебетесь, серьезно?
Just so you understand, this is but one of 22 terminals owned by Wild Pines. Essentially, not only are they kings of the company, they are also kings of the 72,000 employees of Wild Pines Group. They're having a blast. But how can they afford it? After 4 months, my assumption was they would prefer a more practical solution. I'm not sure. Naturally, I assumed that was just their opening position, a hard-nosed tactic with a side of mockery. But there's been no follow-up, just the same nonsensical slogan repeated over and over again. And now, people are getting lynched, I hear. Behind the whirling in rags. A disastrous situation if there ever was one.
Excuse me, from whom did you hear about this lynching?
I first heard it from the bowyer at the gates. The one whose very name advertises his aversion to work. I think he said it was, call me mañana.
This checks out.
The scabs? You mean the huddled masses of Jamrock, come to plead for work where the union refuses to?
Don't let her answer it herself.
If these strikebreakers were organized by Wild Pines or its affiliates, then it would be a company secret. I could not share it with you.
It's implied. She's open to discussing this matter with you at a later occasion.
Everard Clare is a man of the utmost integrity. If you can say one thing about him, it's that he always puts the interests of the workers first. Of course not. Everard is fantastically corrupt. I imagine he has a thick, viscous goo where you and I have blood.
If you were to prick him with something sharp, you could see it oozing out. A knife, maybe? No, a rapier.
He is the most corrupt individual I have ever seen, and I deal with men like him for a living. If there is anyone more venal, more irredeemably nepotistic, then it's his twin brother, Edgar. Yes, Edgar looks exactly like his brother, except for that lazy eye. He also talks exactly like Evrart does, and when one's term as foreman is up, the other takes over.
Хорошо устроились.
It's how they circumvent the term limits, you see, with a funny little switcheroo. While in office, they've embezzled God knows how much of their workers' dues. The Debardeurs Union was once a perfectly normal institution. 20 years ago, anyway. It must not have been easy to establish under the Emergency Act, but they did it. I can respect that. Organised labour at its best, as they say. Then something happened in the local chapter elections. The brothers Clare came and transformed it into a... how do you say...
A mob. The Debardeurs are a crime syndicate. Sad as it may be, I suspect we'll be forced to cooperate with them.
Refreshingly honest, officer. The company has tried appeasing in the past, but I'm afraid our concessions have only emboldened Evrart and his brother. And your opinion, detective, if I may ask? I'm a curious and talkative person, you see. Would you say the Debardeurs Union is... Indeed, and a hungry one. Sadly, Wild Pines have cooperated with what amounts to a crime syndicate for 2 decades. However much you feed the leech always hungers. I'm glad you asked. There was a woman, the previous forewoman of the Union. She disappeared.
Disappeared?
Yes. On the last day of the local chapter elections, her daughter phoned in and said she wasn't running anymore, or coming to work. Ever. End of story.
This forewoman, her name?
Sadly, the company records do not even give a name. She's just forewoman in private correspondence, Holly. I don't even know if it's a sir or given name, and I don't have access to the Union's files. Downright haunting, if you ask me. The Wild Pines suspected foul play, but what could they do? It was a Union matter. The point of the presentation is, these kinds of things happen around the Clares. Watch out when you're dealing with him.
Thank you for your concern, ma'am. We'll be just fine.
Of course. How else can I help? Quite a few things, I'm afraid. The information I'm to share with you includes sensitive trade secrets. For the sake of my employer, I have to ask for your names and badge numbers.
Of course, ma'am. We should have introduced ourselves. I am Lieutenant Kitsuragi from Precinct 57. And this is my colleague from Precinct 41. I'm afraid he doesn't have his badge at the moment. I hope mine will suffice.
How curious. Why is that, Detective? I see. So, are you saying you lost your badge during the course of this episode?
Насколько я знаю, я мог его съесть. Я ничего не помню ни про мир.
Oh dear. Some kind of encephalopathic amnesia. I don't even know how to respond. I do believe you, naive as that may sound. I simply can't imagine what you gain by faking such a condition.
Согласен. То есть это либо действительно происходит, либо нет. Тут нет такого, что кто-то это симулирует.
As I said, ma'am, his technique may be very unconventional, but he is an officer of the RCM.
Of course, I sympathize, but I'm afraid I simply can't share anything more until I've seen that badge.
She's a professional negotiator. She should be open to some sort of mutually beneficial arrangement.
Of course. But before we do, officers, let me be perfectly clear. The situation is extremely volatile. The sooner we can speak about this lynching business, the better for all of us. Of course, Detective.
kingdom of conscience.
Так, я могу внушение поднять еще... А, внушение у меня максимально. Погоди, а у меня есть что-нибудь, что повысит мне внушение? Логика, авторитет, концепция. О, психика минус здоровье. А, погоди, а у меня... Сила воли. Мне нужно что-то, что мне увеличит психику. Спиды дают +1 пси, но я не хочу использовать спиды. А, я понял, это временной бонус за исследование. То есть пока исследуется, у меня -1 логика будет. А я думал, это то, что мне в награду дадут. Тогда пусть дальше исследуется, посмотрим, что из этого получится. Ну, выполненный, в принципе, тоже прогресс какой-то есть.
You're back. Good. What can I help you with? That's the man who was killed. I'm afraid this is a discussion for once we've cleared the lynching question. Better not tie the fourth day to the backstay on this. I hope there is something else I can help you with. This reality.
Yes, reality is your side case. An experimental side case.
Ah, yes. The episode. Sounds like an acute case of encephalopathy, now that I think of it.
Don't be phased, madame. He functions perfectly well. He only needs a lowdown on all of reality.
We may be here a while then. Ask away, officer. I'll help however I can.
All right, we're in. I know these all look good, but begin with the first, okay?
It's a neurological disorder caused by a lack of vitamin B in the brain. Symptoms include a retrograde amnesia. It's quite serious. You should get yourself checked out. Well, it's either bariatric surgery or long-term alcohol use.
She nods slowly.
These are unimportant times, Detective. You and I were born after the dust had settled. 1,000th of a second too late. For the big time. The revolution. It's quite easy. Every 100 years or so, our species gets together to decide what's next, who gets shot in the head, and who gets the mineral rights. It's a real kerfuffle. Those would be the communists. Generally speaking, 40 million people got shot in the head during the World Revolution. But the communists, they all got shot in the head. Oh, and the anarchists too. They shot them well. So well, one forgets they even existed.
She likes the totality of it.
Indeed. They piled them in mass graves in Ozon. And, well, that's the last anyone heard of those people. Did they ever? Before they got shot themselves, they shot 2 million people. Yes, the Red Deluge. The Insulindian Deluge, they call it. Oh, lots of people. Even the king got shot in the head, or thrown beneath a horse, or drowned. Accounts differ. It was unceremonious. Just as well, he wasn't actually the king. Just the king's nephew. The real king abdicated and lived out a long and productive life as a venture capitalist in Grad.
Я любил этого короля, ёбаный коммунист.
Yes, King Guillaume had a nose for bad PR. He ran before it. What is the expression? Went down? Anyway, Gil got out alive and his nephew Frisell got shot in his place. Him and tens of thousands of his wonderfully fascist kingsmen. It was a wild time. The liberals got the mineral rights. And by mineral rights, I mean everything. Liberals are usually middle-class people, Detective. Or the remaining gentry. The beneficiaries of the pre-revolutionary arrangement. Some were rich enough to stay with the Constitution, with monarchy. Big mistake. Others bet on the revolution. They were called the ultras, or ultra-liberals. They fared well. They didn't win so much as survive. We were the last ones standing when the war ended. Everyone else got shot in the head, remember?
We. She's one of them. Of course.
To foreign intervention. The coalition. Those people really took the mineral rights. The liberals took everything that wasn't nailed to the ground. The coalition took the ground. The ocean, the laws, and the people. The coalition of nations. Grad, Mesk, Vesper, Messina, Oranje, and Sur-la-Clay. The armed center of the world. They landed here and ended the revolution. It was the moralist thing to do. The moralists believe in keeping everything exactly the way it is. They believe in mineral rights, and not shooting people in the head. At least not in the same manner and volume as the others do. They are the long-standing provisional rulers of Revachol now, the coalition government. This is their zone of control. They embolden the RCM with crumbs of the same law they took. Technically speaking, you are a moralist.
The color of moralism is blue. The official motto of Moral Intern, or Moralist International, is a blue forget-me-not, a piece of grey sky. Unofficial. For a moment, there was hope.
A devout man of the center. Hard to come by. It's good to have someone who takes a moderate approach to head shooting. In your line of work, I mean. The turn of the century revolution? Don't answer it. It's a trick question. The revolution began in '02 on the Isla of Grad, though by the end, nearly the whole world had gotten involved. It wasn't a who, but a what. A pandemic of Zarat, a particularly virulent prion disease, which the authorities in Grad proved unable to contain. Then Mazov came along and overthrew the government. It made people overthrow their governments. Of course not. It was a highly infectious microorganism that destroyed brain tissue. The actual causes of the revolution were material. The pandemic only provided the spark.
It was a funny time in history. They discovered transistors and rock music, but they didn't know anything about prions. Nobody did.
From Revachol and Grad? Not far. The world managed to cauterize itself. Mazov's government was overthrown in '08, and the coalition crushed the Revachol commune 2 years later. It was the end. Why? You and I, officer. Our lives in the zone of control. A city-state divided into free market zones under the everlasting interregnum of the coalition of nations, and you, of course, the citizens' militia. The zone of control is the third incarnation of Revachol, after the failure of the suzerain and the commune. Modernity. They developed the marvels of the inter-estuary communication, telematic milieus, radiation, colored plastics. Meanwhile, in Revachol West, the aftermath continues for the 5th decade.
51 minus 8 equals 43.
Time flies. The 20s saw a decade of urban war, west of the river leveled, offshore platforms in flames. Still, it's regarded as an improvement on what came before. 08 to 19 was simply hell. The 30s, things settled down
Вообще
in the
удивительно,
30s.
что как она
Revachol East transformed itself into the world's largest tax haven, with the international community's
все это
blessing.
рассказывает, то есть
For the first time
тратит на
in a
нас
long
время, да и в
time,
принципе
it seemed like
мы
things
тоже
were
тратим
going
время на это.
somewhere.
All that untaxed income must have fueled the new. That can only mean one thing.
Yes, and quantitative easing. It was a market mirage, unfortunately. The 40s dispelled it. An Isla-wide hangover, you might say. So, here we are. Welcome to reality, baby.
Добро пожаловать в реальный мир, пупсик.
For her to be where she is, Wild Pines Group must have picked the right side.
They picked the winning side. That's why they're here, and others are not. Perhaps it wouldn't have turned out that way had I been in charge. I might have bet on the king and led the Pines to doom. I would have sided with the cannons. If you'd seen the calibers of the things, you might have too. Perhaps it's better I was born when I was. 10 of the 14 Indo tribes got it wrong. Feld, Kupri, Tricentennial. So I suppose I would have been in good company. Good question. What would you have done differently?
Я бы убил 400 подписчиками.
So a quarter of humanity simply lost their minds. And how would you stop a prion? A complex folding protein, unlife, with a technology 50 years ago. Good hygiene. Really. A very moderate solution to an extreme problem. It's those sort of half measures that doomed the authorities in Grad. When they failed to step up, Marzov and his party stepped in. In this particular case, maybe a more robust state response might have been appropriate.
Opinions expressed here do not reflect the official position of the RC.
And what is your official position, Lieutenant?
My position, ma'am? My parents got ripped to shreds in the revolution. I would have gone the same way. I was saved by being 2 years old. That's my position.
Understandable. They are what they are. Who knows? An afterbloom. Anyway, enough sent.
Not so fast. Who is she in all this? Ask her who she is. She owes you an answer.
I am the vilest of the vile. A traitor. A devourer of nations and infants.
Ну я так сразу и подумал.
I am an ultra.
She raises the corner of her mouth, smirking, revealing a canine.
An ultra-liberal. It's a type of liberal. From the revolution. It's, not the moderate kind. Haven't you heard? I am a nether creature of the Forbidden Swamp. One of those who pushed the king under a shit wagon and betrayed the revolution. I can see you thought I'd gone extinct. No sane person identifies as an ultra-liberal anymore. Not in broad daylight. You're a centrist at heart. A real moralist. Tell me, now that I've uncoiled myself, do you find me frightening?
In her green eyes, you see a mixture of truth and self-satire. Decades of guilt and pride.
Я прощаю вас только потому, что вы так очаровательны.
A devil, who being of great charm and guile, sneaketh into the homes of the godly.
That dialect is obisunt. You recognize it a quote from somewhere. Beneath her waterproof raincoat and silk shirt is a body imbibed in numb 12 perfume. You are suddenly and intimately aware of it.
Ah, maybe you remember more than you let on, despite whatever brain damage the alcohol may have inflicted.
Хотите секса? А он знает, как с дамами разговаривать. А, черт. Просто. Сначала урок истории, потом как бы немножечко очарования, а потом сразу хотите секса? Я думаю, секс подождет. Блин, так хочется это выбрать просто.
Steal, kill, and destroy. That they say we've been doing for over 4 decades now. Perhaps regrettably. I've had my fill for this century. In any case, I'm glad we can remain collegial despite my scaly bulk, and my perverse need to infiltrate and betray both kingdom and revolution. When the dust settled, the liberals were the only ones left to clean up the mess. By virtue of their survival, they were handed enormous power to shape the future. This was all our last generation managed. With due respect to our overlords, the eternal caretaker government that keeps Martinaise a monument to the efficacy of its artillery, I would not have relinquished sovereignty to the coalition. Not here in Martinaise, and not in the stellar...
She realizes her small, cold fists are clenched.
Then for my daughters, we had an obligation to defend our sovereignty. We should have burned the whole Isla down rather than let them have it. Perhaps my intellectual vanity will be my undoing.
You're no dummy yourself.
A smart boy getting smarter, one basic term of reality at a time.
Ну, как бы, как говорится, по зернышку, по чуть-чуть, по чуть-чуть.
Yes, I suppose I am. But I wouldn't be a patriot anywhere but here.
Seditious talk, man.
Yes. Whatever else I am, I'm also a mother and a wife. Now, shall we return to reality? A bird? A sphenicid? A flightless bird of the polar regions? Of course you're not, my dear. I'm just terrible at guessing games. Ah. This is the pier of Rue de Saint-Ghislaine, 33A, where the tenants have been kind enough to rent me a slot. Or 2. A pre-revolutionary tenement. Old buildings are called tenements, you see. And new buildings, bâtiments. After les bâtiments nouveaux. But 33A and 33B are not nouveaux. They're old. This one used to be 8 to 10 stories tall, a real high-rise by the standards of the last century. Built to mirror the skyscrapers across the bay in the Delta. That was before the war, of course. Mostly the urban middle class, I believe. This was once primo real estate, before the cannons lopped 4 or 5 stories off. Splat, splat.
You could be wrong, but from here it appears as if she's running the brush across a
Wonderful.
Прелестно.
The girl in the old lady rags. Looks like a sullen and rebellious member of a teen infraculture. Yes, you and I belong to the supraculture. We're common, the herd. The music on the radio, the food in the chain restaurant, those are all too popular for the girl in the old lady rags.
Пока мы стояли, тут погода сменилась на снег, на дождь, там уже рассвело. Мы все стоим, разговариваем.
Fantasy world, an infraculture with its own dress code and vernacular. It is an illusion, I'm afraid. There is no refuge from the supraculture. Young people who dye their hair funny colors and wear old people's clothes are stupid, and their little rebellion is self-defeating.
Все понятно, так бы сразу.
Right? What next?
Suddenly, you're not so sure you're part of the supraculture.
And what would that be? I can see that, yes. I dabbled in those dark arts myself, not so long ago. I assure you, it was a thoroughly supracultural phenomenon. All permeating. Downright mandatory. Nothing infra about disco, baby. Those days are long behind me. And even in the early 30s, I would say I was more of a new girl. Disco was a minor, but still enjoyable facet of the whole thing for me. The new, a cultural era, and the name of the decade it ravished, the 30s. It came out of post-revolutionary Revachol. It was ultra-liberal.
Странно, подписался, а у меня никаких звуков не было. Благодарю, добро пожаловать. Правда, что-то поздновато, я сейчас уже стрим заканчиваю, ну. С учетом того, что у меня еще этот стоит получасовой. Но это ладно.
It involved lots of partying, as you might imagine, and champagne-colored everything. By the looks of it, that would have been when you came of age. Now, wasn't it Guillaume Le Million who said, if you can remember the new, you weren't there? Ah, yes. This is not very central to reality, is it? I can't be 100% sure, but I believe he died due to complications from venereal disease.
Венерические заболевания, я боюсь представить.
All of them.
Всеми! Ох ты, смотри-ка, а. Он как покемонов их собирал. Все венерические заболевания, красавчик.
I'm afraid no. But then again, one can't be entirely sure. It's all part of his mystique. Ask someone else and you may get it more champagne-colored. Anyway, what other basic facets of reality should we discuss? Glad to have been of assistance.
Так, ладно, этот разговор у нас затянулся. Мне надо работать. Так что да, новоподписавшимся соболезную. Но вот так получилось. Ой, надо работать. Я засиделся немножко. Так что да.